The following episode contains or may contain spoilers. So if you're spoiler sensitive, maybe beware.
Yeah, you sensitive people.
Get out.
Oh, get in. Start.
Yeah.
That is your job.
Okay.
This is your one thing, Noah.
That's my one thing. Yeah, you guys already took thanks guys from me, so that's fine.
Yeah, exactly. So this is your only thing.
Okay. Welcome to the Fantom Zone. 3 fans, 1 podcast, and a sea of comics. I'm Noah.
Kayla.
And the cool one.
That apparently doesn't have a name.
Yeah.
You know, for a split second, I was tempted to say Jared. I have no idea why.
Oh, I get it.
We still have it together, guys. It's fine. So today, since, this weekend, it was International Dog Day, I think. Appreciate your pups and stuff. We decided, and a few listeners have requested this too. So we decided to do pets in comics, superhero best friends, animals.
It was International Dog Day?
Yeah.
Oh, I missed it because that's fake. Cool.
Hey.
International Dog Day. I guess I love my dog now, huh? Because of the day.
I guess so.
No, thank you.
I'm more
I
of
love my
a
dog.
cat person myself, so, I mean, the holidays unremarked.
Kayla, you should tell the listeners what your cat's names are.
I haven't talked about my babies before.
I think you've mentioned it, but I don't think we explained.
Oh, okay. Well, the one I've had longest, who's my big, fluffy, fat cat, his name is Timothy Grayson. And Grayson shouldn't be too hard to figure out, right? And Timothy either, honestly. But it's dual meaning because I'm from San Antonio, so I named Tim after Tim Drake, of course, but also Tim Duncan, who's my favorite basketball player. Huzzah. And then I have a little menace, and his name is Anakin, and he's so aptly named. And I didn't know he'd be a menace, but I guess I kind of, it's self-fulfilling prophecy there, because I did name him after Darth Vader, so.
Oh, yeah. I mean, he knows. I'm sure you've watched those movies around him. He's like, that's what I need to aspire to.
He's living up to the name really well, so, cheers.
We have Noah has a dog, and I have a dog, so we could also describe them if we want to do.
Yeah, I guess. So my dog Lola, I actually named her. It's a pretty obscure comic book reference. In The Dark Knight by Frank Miller, the reporter, I always liked her hair for some reason. It's the blonde reporter with the bright pink, news jacket on. And her name's Lola. So that's where I got her name from.
Lola is also the name of the showgirl in the Barry Manilow song Copacabana.
Yeah, not that.
If that comes up at all. My dog is named Loki. And
who's that from, though? I don't get the reference.
Well, it's a really obscure thing. It's a Norse god of mischief and a character. Nobody even is aware of him, but he's a character. Tom Holland plays him. I don't know if you guys are familiar. Tom Holland.
Nope, I can't do this anymore. I can't do this anymore, guys. I love Loki. That's so insulting.
Well, that being said, and I named my dog the Loki because I'm pretty sure he will usher in the end of the world. So,
oh, cool.
Yeah,
I mean it's about time. Honestly, look around; it's already begun.
Yeah, he doesn't have it's not going to be hard for him, honestly.
If he can do that before the 2020 election, I would greatly appreciate that.
Yeah, well, if he doesn't, the world's gonna do it.
Okay, so yes, those are our pets, and obviously we're all nerds because we named them after comic book things and or Star Wars things.
Oops.
So yeah, I think we should just jump right into it.
This is the episode Noah's been trying to do in every other episode. We should say that.
Yeah, it's true. Since the beginning, he was like, how about our first episode we talk about super pets?
Noah will do it like when it has nothing to do with it. It will be like, oh, it's favorite Star Wars comics. And it's like, I think Darth Vader had a cat. I think he did. I'm going to do that.
He probably did. And if we ever do Star Wars, I will find out who has a pet and I will do it. Yeah, this whole episode is Noah's Animal Corner, and I'm so happy.
He couldn't even limit himself to one for his spotlight.
Well, they'll see why, but no, I couldn't.
Well, look, here's the thing. I think it's interesting. So we might as well talk about like what it is about pets and comics that's interesting, because the thing is that it's superheroes. So it's never just going to be normal pets. I mean, sometimes, let's face it, you just have a cow with Batman's logo on his face and he doesn't really do much. Yeah, he doesn't do much besides that. But for the most part, yeah, they're usually, I mean, they either have sort of one of two big things, which is they're either super powered in some respect. They're, preternaturally powerful or physical in some sense. Or I think the next thing that we see a lot is they basically are like people. They're super smart. And I think since we're kind of going to break down different examples in comics and stuff like that, it's worth having a sort of brief discussion about the fact that like there's actually a thin line between superpowered pet and just like the furry one on the team. So as I give you a sense of like what I'm thinking here is like you have obviously characters in comics that are straight up like just pets, just somebody's dog. Like I don't know if you guys know, but Hawkeye has a dog named Lucky the Pizza Dog, and he's just a dog. He's just like a golden retriever. So that's sort of one obvious example, like a pet that a superhero has. But then you have characters like, and I think you can appreciate this, like characters like Rocket Raccoon and like
He's
Cosmo.
not a pet.
Well, that's gonna be my question. Is like, okay, so obviously he's not a pet. He's
so
like
I could have done Beast Boy this whole time.
I think so. That's like a far end, but they kind of so it's like animals that are just on the team. But the thing is that there's a bunch of stuff that we consider like pets in comics that really half the time they're like as smart as a person. They just don't like talk. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Or they rarely talk or something like that.
Mm-hmm.
And so when you have like I said in superhero pet culture, I guess it's just like these varying degrees of anthropomorphism. You know what I mean? So give an example. Yes, like animals. Yes, like animals. But also, I mean, like just characters like. Do you guys know? I mean, this is a pretty boutique character, but do you know Devil Dinosaur?
Yes.
No, but that's hilarious.
With Moon Girl.
Yes. So, and originally Moon Boy. So there's Moon Boy and Devil Dinosaur, and then later it's Moon Girl. And Moon Girl is like very high, like whatever number level genius in the comics. But her sort of steed and partner is Devil Dinosaur. But the thing, and the reason I bring Devil Dinosaur up, outside of just being this very bizarre, obscure, awesome character, is also that Devil Dinosaur is as smart as a person. Like he also has a boosted IQ, and so it's like he functions in the story as being this gigantic lizard or dinosaur. I guess they're not technically lizards, but you get it, like prehistoric sort of thing. Tyrannosaurus Rex character, but also he's like a guy just. Trapped inside there in a sense. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And so part of me just wonders, like, okay, yeah, I guess that makes it a pet, but why, if it's as smart as a person, like, it's like if you had like a deaf mute person that was covered with fur and couldn't talk, would they just become a pet? Like, how does it work? Like,
No, I would say there's probably a breakdown in intelligence. And if you were once a person and are trapped inside a different body, that kind of disqualifies you from pet status, in my opinion.
Yeah,
well,
I mean,
don't disagree.
If you were an animal and then, I don't know, they gave you a collar to where you could talk, you'd still be a pet. You would just know what they're saying. Because, I don't know.
Yeah. I mean that's and so the reason I bring this up, I guess, or the reason I think it's interesting is sort of it's one of those things where it's like it really asks you the question of like where does the human end and the animal begin? And really, I mean, a lot of the characters that we're going to talk about today function more like people. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
Well, I would say, I mean, maybe. I just think they're just more companions, really. I mean, at least the ones that I picked. You know what I mean? Like,
well,
I didn't.
A person can be a companion, Noah.
Well, okay. I mean, like, man's best friend type companion.
I was gonna say mine's not. Mine's a pretty normal creature, but it has such a large personality that I would say, yeah, it's reached like the notoriety only a person can achieve. So,
I mean, it is kind of weird because there are some. I wouldn't even necessarily call them pets, but they are. But the ones that are just technically like a different species, but because they can't talk, then
you mean
they're
like
pets.
flurkins?
Yes.
That's a great example.
To be fair, it looks like a cat, so it's its own fault.
Well, that's what I'm saying. Like outside of the superficial, like a lot of times this pet category is just kind of hard to get your hand around because or your head around because like sometimes it's like, okay, yes, it's an animal, but like I said with Rocket Raccoon, he's like a raccoon, but he's like a person. But then you have these things that are not animals, but act like goddamn pets. And I can give you two examples. And you tell. So is Bizarro a pet? I'm just curious.
No. Oh my god.
It depends on what iteration you're talking about.
Yeah, I mean that like when in what is it? My mind blanks. The where the villains fight in
Forever Evil.
DC.
I was gonna say he's definitely a pet to Lex. So
I mean, you put some furry ears on that thing, and heat vision or no, or I get cold vision or no, like that's a pet.
Mean, it's more. I don't know. I mean, yeah, maybe like in his first couple hours on Earth, but he kind of. He's his own thing now. I wouldn't say he's a pet.
Well, we're gonna learn in this episode. A pet can sometimes be their own thing. Yeah, I went full smarmy. Okay, so that Bizarro's one. Here's another one, which I think. Do you guys know who Toomey is?
No.
Why does that sound so familiar?
It's Silver Surfer's board.
Oh my god, what?
See, that's why I didn't think of it as a pet.
Yeah, exactly. So Silver Surfer, they recently named it in a really fantastic series. Silver Surfer, his girlfriend named it To Me because he's always saying "To me, my board." You know what I mean? So it's like, very
like TOME.
Yeah, it's very clever.
Oh,
cute.
But the reason I mention this is that, like, in the comic books, the thing really kind of acts like a puppy or something like that. It's not just a mode of conveyance. Like, he talks to the board helps him. The board seems to have its own, like, sentience. It can do things. It can go on, like, little side quests almost. So it definitely, I mean, don't get me wrong. If you said that's not a pet, fair enough. But I think it's worth entering into discussion because it definitely blurs the line.
Okay, I wanted to do this episode to talk about fluffy things, and you're talking about boards and Frankenstein monsters.
That's definitely, I'm putting them in relation to fluffy things. But we can talk about the fluffy. I
mean, I did want to mention some interesting type of pets, or one in particular that many people might not know about Wonder Woman. As I was doing my research, I did not know this. I did not know this, and it's insane. So, in the Golden Age, the Amazons used to ride giant kangaroos.
Oh, yeah.
And they called them kangas.
Very clever.
And her particular kangaroo was called Jumpa. So, it's jump with an A. And not... To make it more comic book like, because comics, this kangaroo could ride her to the moon.
What?
Oh no!
Did it explode in space, and that's why she got the invisible jet now?
No, oh man, I don't know that. She has a giant space kangaroo.
But also, what kind of weirdo writer wrote that in, because that's the idea, is that kangaroos used to live on Themyscira like that. They domesticated them, This is supposedly the Amazons, but implied in that is this is Paradise Island. So when this Wonder Woman writer thought of like, what's the perfect island? Well, it's going to have kangaroos in it, giant ones we could ride. That is so freakish.
Yeah, they're terrifying. They're gigantic. I don't. It's like the size of a T-Rex. I don't understand what the point is.
Yeah, I'm gonna put that in the list of real stupid.
But then there's also ones that, serve absolutely no purpose at all except to play music. Do you know which one I'm talking about? He's under the sea.
Oh my god.
And it's not the Little Mermaid.
What? It's not the... Never mind. I have no idea.
Is it a giant mermaid?
No, it's the octopus.
Is it the
Topo?
octopus from...
Yes.
Topo.
I forgot Topo played music. That's really funny because I think of a different Topo.
There's been a lot of
that's Topo instantiations.
No, that's what he's known for, is playing the double bass and the banjo underwater. Because that makes so much sense.
But I also, before we get into like specific examples, I was also curious, like, why? So, what's your favorite thing about like why like they're in comics in the first place? Because I was thinking about this, and like in certain ways, there's always a bit of a corniness to when pets are in comic books. You know what I mean? Like, so the best example, and none of us are spotlighting this character in particular, so it feels like we should bring him up. Who would you take as the most popular superhero pet?
Are we going
in
Krypto?
the comic books? Krypto. It's just like unequivocally so. And I mean, I'm just curious, how do you guys feel about Krypto generally? I mean, is there any part of you that's like, oh, this is a bit corny?
Yes. I could add more, but is it a yes or no, or did you want an expansive answer?
I would, yeah. If you have a follow up, definitely that'd be good.
All right. I mean, so in general, pets in comics aren't my jam because I do think they come across as really corny. I think it's unnecessary. I'd much prefer to kind of the stories follow or the page time be dedicated to actual characters. And I mean, people are going to fight me and be like, those are actual characters. But I'm like, yes, but they're corny.
Dare you.
I in pets in comics, I actually prefer, and my spotlight is kind of proof of this, that they have a personality, but that they're kind of in the background. So unless, I know that the character, I can't remember the pet's name in Saga, unless it has like an actual story use, I'm kind
Lion
of like...
Cat.
Yeah, exactly. Lion Cat. Unless it has like an actual story use that's used to further the plot and assist its like master. I'm kind of prefer just like I just have a dog. And because I feel like if it's seen briefly and it's just a normal pet, it just humanizes the hero, which I really like. I really love when there's a balance in comics between like their superhero life and their normal home life. And I feel like pets are at least one way to do that. So I definitely prefer the normal pets for that reason. Otherwise, I feel like it does get kind of cheesy.
Yeah, I mean, I'm glad you mentioned that because I mean, I think that was well said. I didn't think about it in terms of like that you're humanizing the character. That in some sense, pets are used as a sort of device for character development. But I think that's totally well said. I also think that there's a way where they just fill out the reality of the story. I mean, living in New York, I mean, you just see dogs constantly. Like they're just a part of people's lives. So in some sense, it's almost like they have to at least be present just to create a kind of like a real texture to the world of comics, I think.
Yeah, but I always find it sad whenever a superhero has a normal pet because who's taking care of them? Not everybody has an Alfred. I'm just saying.
That's true.
Unless there's like some superhero doggy boarding daycare that's happening that also should be a comic. Now that I just made that up. I mean, I don't know. I kind of like all different types, obviously. I mean, I agree that, giving them a normal pet does humanize them, like Ace the Bat Hound. It was an interesting story, and it's a little tiny thing and like an Easter egg now. But I mean, it does get a little ridiculous with, octopus that can play instruments or a bat cow that it absolutely makes no sense whatsoever. Like a bat cow's okay. It's a cool aesthetic, but I didn't think it'd be serious, and it was serious. But then you have like normal companions like Ampersand from Why the Last Man. So his York's monkey. So I mean, even though it's a normal pet, it's part of that character, and it becomes a cool little, I guess not necessarily motif, but like an iconic thing with that character. But I mean, then again, Ampersand was with him for quite a bit. So
No, and actually, you sort of I think arrive upon another function that they have in story, which is really important. It's sort of rare, but like with ampersand, they can be a kind of almost MacGuffin, or if not technically MacGuffin, like if you know the story, ampersand is really central to figuring out the mystery of why all the male mammals have died on the planet Earth.
Oh yeah,
so
he was male too.
That's right. So and mysteriously alive, So there is a sense where you can create stories where these pets end up actually being, if not the sort of nucleus that the story revolves around, at least like crucial moments or pivot points in the story, and that's a really great example. Mm-hmm. But also, I mean, like I think we can't forget that at some level, when you read comics, and comics are a visual medium. People love animals. I mean, that's obvious, right? They love dogs, they love cats, and it creates a certain amount of endorphins to look at their cutie little faces or whatever. Yes. So there is a sense where they're attractive from just like a art standpoint, from an aesthetic standpoint, and that they fill out stories from that standpoint.
I mean, I agree.
I think that's a hilarious point. I mean, I can't say that you're wrong. But just the fact that the creative team would be like, this is getting a little too dark. We need to give Damien like a pet bat ferret now, because it's going to really brighten up those readers' days, okay?
But that actually is a great point. I mean, it is silly, and this is definitely on the sillier end of comics, but that's definitely true. I mean, you sort of touch on it right there, which is if a story is getting dark or brooding or I mean, just sad and unredemptive, I actually think that the kind of feelings that pets evoke could probably, it's in the same way that you'd put a joke in it, just to create levity so people aren't like, oh, God, this is hard to read the story. You put a cute puppy face on there. That takes the edge off.
I mean, there is something really cute about, or I guess humanizing or sweet about seeing Batman, interact with Ace. Or like, especially when he's like out of his bat costume and he's just like sitting there with him and like petting him. And I'm like, oh, he's like coming home to his little doggy. It's so cute. But I mean, yeah, he doesn't function outside of that. I mean, that's just one of those kind of useless animals that are around.
Useless animals.
Oh, okay. You just said you don't really like them in comics. At least I said they're cute.
I think they have their uses. I didn't call them useless.
Okay, well, I said it.
To be continued. But here's another thing. There's the polar opposite of this as well, because as we mentioned, like, they can fill us with like endorphins because they're, cute to look at, and they're softening in a sense. They can also, we forget, like, it's less common, but villains have pets too, and they can be fucking terrifying in comic books.
Poison Ivy would have a man-eating Venus flytrap that would just completely disintegrate anyone that gets near.
Absolutely, cool. And they're famous examples. And this one's deeply visually striking to me. I think you'll love it. Does the name Bubastis ring a bell to anybody?
No. Why would that
sounds
ring a
cool?
Bell?
It's Ozymandias's sort of, I can't remember the name of the species, but that weird like lynx that looked like it was looked like it was from fucking Neptune or something.
It's really pretty.
It is
really pretty.
Yeah, but it was scary in the context of the story too, because it's like just this fucking flamboyant tiger creature or whatever that was going to rip people's entrails out.
Harley Quinn.
The hyenas.
Yes.
And there is also a famously powerful Red Lantern, hanging around Atrocitus. I don't know if you want to talk about him, Noah.
Dexter? I love Dexter.
Yeah. Which is really cool.
He's adorable and also terrifying at the same time. He's an angry ass cat. That's a Red Lantern. It's amazing. Cats are evil. Cats are mean. It's perfectly understandable. That? Oh, wait. Oh, you just said Anakin was not a nice cat, or he's a butthead. So
yeah, but let's just say to disparage all cats, you're lucky there's a couple states between us right now.
I'm just saying, out of the 4 cats that I've personally had, none of them have been nice. So they're all Red Lanterns now, I'm pretty sure. So, I mean, it just makes sense that a cat would be a Red Lantern. I'm just saying.
Of the three of us, it's funny because like Kayla, solidly a cat person.
Yep.
I am definitely a dog person, and then Noah loves dogs, but is more like a cat. And I think that's
What does that
I see it. I see it.
Yeah, and that sounds. I'm saying when sometimes in the middle of the night, Noah will be eating mice. He'll just eat mice. So that's. I don't want to
leave heads for presents.
Yeah. But okay, so we talked a little bit about like how pets function in stories. I thought it would be interesting too, because to talk about how they actually sort of function in a more literal sense, because they actually, usually only do a number of things within the story. And we've touched on it before. Like one, I just want to kind of get out of the way. It's just companionship. Mm-hmm. Like they're just like we mentioned, to humanize characters and stuff like that. We have these characters that really don't do much in terms of thwarting evil, or they don't have much of an action oriented role, but they're definitely there around the setting. They kind of, and if anything, they kind of have that feel of like making the hero's lair more complete or something like that. So like,
sometimes they like jump in at the last minute and like save them, and then that's it. That was the whole purpose of that animal.
Well, that's true, and I'll actually get to that because I think that's a more established role. But just in this, I mean, there's like we mentioned, Ace the Bat Hound. He does, like you mentioned, like every once in a while, he's gonna bite somebody in the ass, as a dog is known to do. But do you guys know Bats the ghost dog? I know you do. Noah, do you remember Bats?
No, I'm just picturing the night before. Yeah, the Nightmare Before Christmas.
You're not far off. Doctor Strange has this dog that is inexplicably able to talk, because there's just magic abound with this hound.
Comics and magic.
Yeah, because comics, exactly. And then he was killed by Loki of all things. Not my dog, but the god of mischief. Yeah, it's very sad.
Asshole.
And then he's very... And this is a good example of like this. He's completely a basset hound. There's no escaping it. But he definitely also talks, and it's hard. He's just like a buddy. He's like the Foggy Nelson of the series in a certain way.
It's adorable.
He is adorable, and he's usually comic relief and stuff like that.
Yeah, because like Doctor Strange is usually like super serious or like being all like, I don't know, melodramatic or whatever, and then he walks in and is like, what the hell's wrong with you, man? Like, it's just, he keeps him on his toes. Well, he did until Loki killed him.
That's absolutely true. No, that's a really good point, and it's weird. It's like a personality thing where because most pets do not talk, obviously. They can't act in a character the way that Bats usually does, but he does function as a kind of like conscience. And there is a way. I mean, there's plenty of times where like, they end up being like a soliloquy device, like where the hero is like monologuing and the dog is looking at them. And he's like, well, maybe I should call her, but I'm too afraid. And then the panel is the dog looking, and it's like, you're right. I gotta stop being a coward.
That makes sense.
Yes. But then, okay, so let's get more. This is superheroes. So this is about fighting evil. So the other thing that we see, I think, and you guys will probably agree with this because it's hard not to, is that pets are some of them just kick ass. Like their job is to help kick ass.
Yeah, unfortunately.
You don't like that? Well, look, I mean, so you put some shade on Krypto, but maybe there's shade, maybe as iconic as Krypto is, maybe he deserves it because you got to suspend some disbelief. And, Superman doesn't really need a dog necessarily.
No, he's been Connor's dog for years now.
That's true.
And I think that makes complete sense because it makes sense that Cadmus was experimenting on animals to also, for some reason, make them Kryptonians or just like super dogs. But I don't know. I've always loved the story of like, Jonathan like breaking out of his tube and then like coming across Krypto and being like, hey, buddy, let's go. It's super cute. And he's
that's a great, that's a great retelling and realistic origin, because, the idea that they would, like Cadmus would experiment with Kryptonian DNA, they probably would do it with animals first.
Oh, yeah.
So I mean, and that kind of gives him an origin that's not just completely hokey, like tawny, like talky tawny, you know what I mean? But I would actually counter the point that they are silly or ancillary or useless, because some characters, and I mean usually more obscure characters, actually their whole thing is that they have this animal sidekick. Like, do you guys know Arsenic and Old Lace from the Runaways series?
Runaways, yes.
So it's a raptor, this character named Old Lace, and it's genetically and psychically linked to one of the characters, Gertrude. She actually changed her name to Arsenic so they can be Arsenic and Old Lace. It moves around, but I don't want to spoil anything. But point being is that, like, that's kind of just the point of their team up is, so it's almost like her superpower is having a raptor. You know what I'm saying?
Which is also weird. I never understood that one. I mean, it's cool, like, when you actually read the story and it's like you kind of love them and everything, but then, like, just even you explaining it, because it's been so long since I've read the Runaways or even seen Old Lace in anything, even just explaining that, it's like, well, why doesn't the raptor just run away? Like, why? Like, they're just psychically linked, you know what I mean? Like, I don't know. It's weird. It's a weird one.
No, it's true. And then there's also, if you're familiar, Khazar is like a caveman character from Marvel, and he's got a big saber-toothed tiger named Zabu.
Mm-hmm.
And Zabu is sort of one of the reasons Khazar is a badass. It's almost part of his power set that he has this pet.
That makes sense, you know? I mean, when they have like a feral animal on their side, I always think of either like the direwolves or the dragons in Game of Thrones. And
absolutely,
I think that's okay. And I don't think that's just, I mean, obviously it's like they're dragons and direwolves and raptors and tigers, and you can't actually have those things as pets without them eating you. And also because some of those things aren't real. But
that we know of.
Yeah, that we know of. But I feel like when they're kind of in their natural state, quote unquote, and they maintain that savagery, I think, I don't know, it suspends less disbelief than them putting on a cape and flying around. Krypto.
Yeah.
Leave Krypto alone.
And then there's, I always like to talk about the Thor stuff. There's Thori. You know, we've talked about him on the show before, so I won't go too far into him. He's amazing. And I think in some sense too, it just depends on the nature of the story, because with Thori, he's the son of like just a bunch of magical stuff. So it's like he's the son of Garm, which is like the similar to the Fenris wolf, a giant wolf in Norse mythology, and then a hell wolf, a hellhound. And he talks and bites demons and stuff like that. So it's like you can suspend disbelief just because you're already in this world of magic, and talking animals are kind of part and parcel. You know what I mean?
Yeah, listen to our Thor deep dive.
Yes, more on Thor.
There's a Noah's Animal Corner midway through that one, and I go real deep into that character.
Exactly. But point here is that in this kind of grouping, right, just popular in stories is sometimes we're just seeing pets as like, they're sort of like combat backup. They're just, it's like, oh, I'm getting attacked by Black Adam. Holy shit, it's a magical tiger attacking me. It's just a cool splash page, and then that sort of stuff. Another thing I think you see them a lot is, this is weird, but it happens a lot, is transportation.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? Like, there's so many cases where, like, if you gotta have an animal, or sorry, if you have a hero and they're gonna ride something, a lot of times, like, you know, I don't want it to be a kangaroo necessarily.
I would want to have Appa from The Last Airbender. A giant
good pet.
Flying,
good boy.
Yeah, giant flying bison. Why not?
Yep.
Absolutely. But yeah, just magical steeds. Like, there's so many flying Pegasi in comic books, by the way, that's just really popular. Like Valkyrie
like
and Black
Swiftwind.
Absolutely. And Aragorn and Valinor. Sorry.
We said words, guys. I swear these are real things.
And then Tooth Grinder and Tooth Gnasher, I think, if you're a Thor fan, obviously just
okay. I feel like we've mentioned them so much on this podcast.
It's because I'm a Thor fan, and they are just in for one, but also because it's just it's just a over the top silly comic thing, really. Mm-hmm. And then the other one, and I know we're going to talk about him later or whenever, basically no one wants to, but Lockjaw is the ultimate transportational device, and again, he's one of the main pets in comics.
Speaking of Lockjaw, I guess I'll just start with him because I feel like, aside from Krypto, we did kind of just touch on Krypto, but Lockjaw is one of the other top, pets in comics, or at least one that's, more beloved than all the other ones. Mm-hmm. I thought I would just kind of briefly touch on him and kind of tell you where he came from. And then, so he first appeared in Fantastic Four number 45 in 1965. So he has been around for a long time. So the Inhumans, he was a product of experimentation. The Surgeon Supreme was the person that was experimenting on these puppies. And the mother, Lockjaw's mother, ended up having 5 puppies. And before they could take the puppies out of the womb and, take the puppies for their own, because they exposed it to I think they called it teragenesis at that point. They exposed this dog to the mist that gives the Inhumans their powers. Lockjaw actually teleported all 5 of his siblings away, which I think is super sweet because he already knew that it was bad business coming out in this world. So he teleported his 4 siblings, so there's 5 of them, teleported his 4 siblings to Brooklyn, the Savage Land, Wanagore Mountain, and then Earth 8311. So spread them all out, kind of like Thor and his siblings when the Loki had to go disperse them around. So yeah, and then he teleported back for some reason. So he teleported his siblings away and then teleported back. And then ever since he's been Black Bolt or Crystal's main companion. And then his powers, like Jared had said, he can teleport through space and time. And he also has like super tracking scent through space and time.
What a useful doggy.
Yeah, he's essentially a gigantic like English bulldog that's like bigger than humans and can teleport. Like if you're touching him, he'll teleport you with him. So he's amazing. I love Lockjaw so much.
As teleporters go, he's top of the heap too, because the lowest is characters like Nightcrawler, who's great, but and has because he's an acrobat, his tactical use of teleporter, but he has to look at something and to teleport there. Lockjaw can go basically instantly anywhere in the universe trivially, and he can take all his friends with him.
Yeah, because he has those super senses. So if he wants to go somewhere, he can just kind of see that place or smell that place, and then he'll teleport them.
I wanted to mention a few things too, because I don't know if you guys remember this. There was a period of time where they were acting like Lockjaw was a regular person, and then the Terrigen mists of the Inhumans kind of turned him into a dog or whatever. I'm glad they retconned that.
Yes.
You know what I mean? I'm glad because I want him to be a dog. I don't want him to be this weirdly deformed Inhuman character.
Yeah, because then it begs the question of, with everything that's in comics, because it's comics and there's magic and there's science, it's like, why didn't you just reverse the effects? If they were a person and then they were an animal, why didn't you just, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
I can't suspend disbelief that much that there's absolutely no cure for that. So, yeah, I'm glad that they were like, nope, he was a puppy and also saved all his siblings because he's a good boy.
He is a good boy. On that note, what's interesting too to me about Lockjaw is that for most of these pets, they are extra supplicated sort of side characters or supporting characters, where they're very derivative of their masters or whatever. In this case, Lockjaw might be the most popular member of the Inhumans.
Yes. I was going to say that team alone is just aesthetically striking. They're along the lines of the X-Men. They're essentially almost the same characters, but with different origins or how they get their powers and how long they've been around. But the Inhumans just aesthetically, and then adding a gigantic English bulldog with a tuning fork on its head that can teleport. The aesthetics are there. It just looks amazing.
Yeah, he has the fork that matches Black Bolt's fork, which is just fun
on his forehead.
and then I want to say too, and just because I think this is interesting, Lockjaw is almost like the Marvel Universe's dog.
Yeah.
Everybody has a relationship in the Marvel Universe with this dog, like from the Avengers to the Fantastic Four to Beta Ray Bill is friends with him for some reason.
I love their relationship so much.
Yeah.
It's a horse and his dog.
They've had like, yeah.
Yeah, they went on adventures and everything together. It's great.
Yeah, and so he's a character that's worth just putting the time that we just did into, because Lockjaw, in some sense, has had his character developed, more than a lot of characters in the Marvel Universe generally. Yeah, I mean, I picked somebody who I think is similar to Lockjaw in certain ways, not least of which because he shares part of his name. My character is Lockheed. And I'm not, he's very cool. And I'm not sure if you guys are familiar, but what he would look like, and he's actually an alien, but he looks like a small pink or purple, usually purple, dragon. Yeah, he's roughly, he's like the size of maybe like a medium-sized dog with wings. That's kind of usually how it works. And basically he's an alien that the X-Men, like his what do you call it? Sorry. He was, I think, Uncanny X-Men number, I can't find the number, but it's like 163 or something like that.
Sounds right.
Yeah, it's or 166. I can't remember, but it was part of Chris Claremont's run, and he the X-Men meet him when they're in space fighting the Brood. If you don't know, the Brood are sort of like the Xenomorphs. That's sort of pretty derivative, actually. But anyway. And Lockjaw bonds with Kitty Pryde, and for most of their sort of history, Lockjaw, he has like an empathic link to her, and he's super cool. And if you don't have a sense, he is, he can fly. Obviously, he can bite the shit out of you. That's important. He's really durable. He's been like beaten up by like really superpowered characters and stuff like that, and still survive.
Even picturing that, and then some of the scenes I've seen with people like punching him, I'm like, why would you punch a purple little cute dragon? Like,
well, because he's in the fight.
Fighting you.
Yeah, exactly. He's in. Or his main sort of kind of attack is he breathes like super hot fire, like any good dragons want to do. He's got a few other things too. He's immune to telepathy. Or at least, most high level. So even Professor X couldn't read his mind.
Almost,
and that's
you could just almost every weird character in the X-Men is going to be immune to telepathy. It's just always the weird ones that are immune to it. That's like, okay, even if he wasn't, why would they need to? You know what I mean? Why would they need to like control? I don't know. That's so weird.
Well, it's. I mean, you're right. It's just because there's so many telepaths roaming around the X universe. Anytime there's a villain, they have to explain why they didn't just instantly lose, and that's like one relatively cheap way of doing it. But so Lockjaw, and the explanation for Lockjaw, Lockheed. I'm going to do that 4 times. I'm sure. For Lockheed, the explanation is just that he's an alien. Sometimes that alone, so some weird thing about their psychology. But what's interesting is that people think of him as a pet, one, because he obviously looks like an animal, and he follows Kitty Pryde around. But also, Lockheed is just is quiet. He actually can speak, and he's got at least human intelligence.
Yeah.
And he's actually had this weird. So most of what you know from him is sort of like during the Excalibur run, or really any time, even in the Uncanny X-Men when Joss Whedon wrote Kitty Pryde, he was around, which I'm really glad they didn't like leave him in like the dustbin of comic history. He's sort of been around as sort of functioning like a quiet pet, but he's also had this weird background career as like a secret agent. If if you don't know, there's this in the Marvel universe. There's a thing like Shield, a government sort of global organization, but rather than being kind of like the CIA, like Shield is, or something like that, it's called SWORD, and it's a branch that's meant to protect the Earth from alien influence and stuff like that. Captain Marvel's been associated with them, all kinds of stuff like that, and Lockheed has been one of their secret agents. So he ends up being a really cool character because he fills this sort of pet sort of role, but also he's smart enough to have like this life outside of just like Shadowcat. And I also I like him because he ends up being pretty important and not just derivative of the character. And I love Krypto. I think we've almost been crapping on him a little bit too much.
No, just Caleb.
But yeah,
No, I ain't taking it back.
but the thing is that so he, ultimately Krypto is going to be overshadowed by Superman, Supergirl, Superboy, stuff like that. What I like about Lockheed is he's generally around characters that in some ways he's more striking than, like in some ways he's more striking than Shadowcat. I mean, I mean visually. So
I know.
Because
I like the
a
aesthetic.
dragon.
Yeah, well, that's what I mean. I in the same way that Drogon was, visually at least overshadowed Daenerys, or at least didn't seem like extra or derivative. And as cool as Kitty Pryde is, and she's one of my favorite X-Men. She subtly goes through walls, whereas he's a purple flying beast that breathes fire on bad guys. So
also, when he was in that SWORD as a secret agent, he actually did use guns. So
what?
There have been a couple times, yeah.
Yeah, he has his feet grabbers would hold these guns.
No.
Yeah. I mean, if anything, that's not really necessary because of the fire. So, but yeah, he technically can. And then, I mean, I don't know. Also say just as a throw the fact out there, he's a founding member of the Pet Avengers.
Yay!
Yes. Which we'll get to it a little bit later, but yes, that's Lockheed. If you've seen Kitty Pryde and you've seen the X-Men, if you're a fan of that, you will have seen this character. He's always sort of in the background. So
yeah, good job, Jared.
All right, so I kind of went in the exact opposite direction of both of you guys, and I'm going to spotlight a character, a cute little pet named Stinky the cat. All right, so Stinky is Power Girl's mangy, blonde-colored tabby cat. First introduction was Justice League of America number 37, came out in 1990. So Stinky's been around for a while. And I have to read this quote because I thought it was hilarious and encapsulates everything about why I loved this darn cat so much. By and large, the creature is wholly unremarkable, but for the fact that it is ugly and universally reviled by anyone who encounters it. Everyone hates it, and most live in fear of it.
Dear God.
Okay, so this is just a regular cat. Abilities include intimidation because it's just this monster. And claws, obviously, because it can scratch. It's a cat. Its weakness, it's missing an eye. Poor Stinky has one eye. So,
God.
It's partially blind. Origin of Stinky is... Can you guys still hear me?
Yeah.
Yep.
Oh, okay. Sorry, I'm getting another call, so it just got really weird. All right, sorry about that. Origin of Stinky. He was found inside a garbage can by Guy Gardner, and he accidentally brought it to the Justice League headquarters. It fought several members and disappeared. But before that, it almost suffocated Wally by sleeping on his face. He was resistant to Guy Gardner's power ring and started attaching itself to his face. It's quite a scary little feline. And when
Holy shit.
No one knows why it's immune to the lantern, but it is.
Was it yellow?
No, it was a green. It's the will. It's resistant.
No. is the cat yellow?
Yeah, it's blonde colored.
Well, that's why it's resistant, or at least it was back then.
Well, that's dumb.
Yeah. But when it reappeared, it was during, of course, Power Girl's tenure with the Justice League in Europe, when the headquarters was in Paris. And then so she kind of adopted it because she felt sorry for the poor thing. And while it was there, members would draw straws to see which unfortunate soul had to bathe him. And after being mutilated while trying to hold this cat in the tub, it would immediately run outside and roll around in garbage to, you know, get back its preferred smell. So it was all kind of pointless in the end anyway.
I like this cat.
I know, right? Some fun facts. While it was in one of the headquarters in London, it got into a fight with a mastiff and killed it. Villain Mr. Biggers implanted a camera tech into its eye to try to spy on the League, but it got like some unimpressive stuff, like two of them arguing over plumbing issues. One of the girls was talking about a crush she had with one of the other members. Basically got a whole bunch of useless information. Of course, it currently lives, it lived with Power Girl in the headquarters when she moved to Manhattan, and when she moved out, of course, she took Stinky with her. It's also been kidnapped several times since he's been around, and most of the people have been like, no, please take Stinky back. So this is what I mean by, like, he has such a large personality that he doesn't need any superpowers.
You were supposed to pick a pet, and I think you picked some sort of hirsute pestilence.
I love this cat so much, and I mean, just Google a picture of Stinky the cat, and you will see why people live in terror.
It looks so sad. It's like the writer or the creator of the cat was just like, you know what? Let's give them a cat. And I'm like, okay, cool, but make it the most disgusting and ugly cat, and also take away one of its eyes. It's like, what?
This person does not like cats. I think we have a lot in common. Not the smelly part, but so much, but the I hate everyone, leave me alone, I will kill you.
Yeah,
if you get near me, don't.
Mm-hmm.
Is everyone thinking of Grumpy Cat? Wasn't that what his name was? Grumpy Cat.
Yeah,
but Grumpy Cat was sweet. He was sweet.
But yeah, that's Stinky the cat.
I like it. I did not know all of that. God, good God. Okay. So mine is going to be a little short, and that's kind of why I did the Lockjaw stuff. So I picked Goliath, and he is Damien's dragon bat companion pet thing.
Of course,
But I got to talk
what is he?
He's a dragon bat.
A dragon bat.
Oh, of course. Yeah, obviously. Sorry. How did I not know that?
But he's furry, so... Okay, so his first appearance was in Convergence New Teen Titans #2 back in 2015. And essentially the story of how Goliath came into Damien's possession, which seems like a weird thing to happen. Damien was sent to get the King's Scepter in this temple in Bealia. And in that temple, it's pretty much guarded by dragon bats. Bunch of them. So Damien, being the killer that he is, he massacred all of them except for Goliath.
What a piece of shit.
I mean, he was still under the League's influence. His mom wanted him to steal the scepter, so he slayed all of these, creatures. And then in his kind of bloodthirst rage, and he's dealing with all these emotions in his head, he hears a noise behind him and thinks it's another one. And I remember this. It's one of my favorite panels with Damien. He swings around with the sword, and it's right in Goliath's face. And Goliath is just kind of looking at him, and all of Goliath's family is just massacred around him. And that kind of breaks Damien down, and he starts crying because he keeps telling Goliath to attack him because he can't, I guess, just kill this little baby dragon bat. And, he falls to the ground and he's crying, and then Goliath comes up to him and licks his nose. And I was like, it's so cute. But then
what a bitch.
He convinces his mom to let him keep it, and he said that he would train it, and it could be a good asset for the league. But then fast forward a bit, and they escape, and then Goliath tags along with him. He grows up to be this gigantic, big red. He kind of looks more like a dog and bat and dragon type thing. He's really cool looking. But then towards the end of their run together, he, I believe it was during the Robin War. Robin, I guess, couldn't have a dragon bat around when that was happening. So he brought Goliath back to Razogul Island and then set him free. So that's where he's at. Just running around. Not with Damien.
That is sad. I'm sure he'll return one day.
I hope so. It was such a neat thing, and I like, there's always that like one thing that makes, the stories of a Robin different, and it's like, yeah, Damien's a killer, and like he's going through all these things, and he's 13, but then to give him this big dragon bat it was really cool. It kept his roots in the whole mythos that is Ra's al Ghul and like the mystic type stuff. So I thought it was really cool for him to have that. But
yeah,
we'll see him.
I like that he has his very own Chewbacca.
Yeah. Yeah, but that's the story of Goliath. He's really cool.
The story. Wait, did you say this was in Bealia, as in Queen Bee's Bealia?
Yes.
Okay, just checking.
Good catch. Comic book recommendation time. Jared?
Yeah, mine is a miniseries that came out called Lockjaw and the Pet Avengers. It's a really good story. It's got Lockjaw for one, but it's also got Lockheed, the character that I was spotlighting. It's got Throg, the Frog of Thunder. I know. Speedball's cat Niels. I don't know if you're aware of this cat, but and Red Wing. So this is, I think, the first instantiation of the book. There have been other characters like Zabu has been on there, and Devil Dinosaur, and I can't remember, what was that dog's name that
the white one
doesn't have any powers. I can't
remember. It was like Mr.
Mrs.
President.
T Bottom or something.
I think it was Mr. President, actually.
It could be right. Anyway, but the point, it's a really good series. It's really super fun. It also just challenges the idea of, it's like the Teen Titans at some level. It's like, let's put all these pet characters together and see if they can really be a team. And they kind of are. Don't get me wrong, it's fun, but they chase after the Infinity Gems and face off against Thanos. It's really cool. I think you'll like it, especially if you're like...
Lockjaw gets the power gem, so...
Yes, if you want something silly and fun, this is the book for you. And it's got cute little pets.
Kayla?
Oh, yeah. Well, mine's pretty simple. I can't really follow that. But if you pick up the Justice League of America number 37, where Stinky Cat first appears, you get to see him kick Guy Gardner's ass. So why wouldn't you want to do that? So you pick up
You're insulting
Justice
Guy
League number
Gardner,
37.
God, guys. Okay, mine is going to be The Son of Batman, Volume 1. It's called The Year of Blood by Patrick Leeson. This one, I believe it starts in the back end of it, but that's where Goliath comes in, and then you can read Goliath and the Teen Titans and all of that. But yeah, Robin, Son of Batman, Volume 1. And I think that's it for our pet episode, guys.
Yay!
Yay.
Cuddle your pets for us.
All right.
Thanks for listening. Follow us on Facebook, Instagram, or Twitter at the Fantom Zone Pod for more podcast updates.